The content of this video, as well as the thoughts, views, and opinions expressed herein, belong to the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the views of Brigham Young University or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We welcome you. This has been one of the favorite classes we've taught at Education Week. Each year, our attendance at this class is highly dependent on which way the stock market is moving prior to teaching the class. Last year, the class was packed full. It looks like all of you are very settled, very resolved. Everything's okay with you. You feel like there's no problem at all. Let me ask you this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is too bad. We should have some kind of a clicker thing that people could actually, because I'd love to see how they score on it. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10, America's in great shape economically. We're rolling right along. It's the way the things should be happening. You're thrilled. You're very happy with the way things are working. 0, you are devastated. It probably Armageddon's coming within the next week or something like that. It's just so bad. Okay, ready? Just for fun, let's just see how you do. Now look around the classroom as we do this. How many of you would give us a 10? America gets a 10 right now. No 10s. A 9. 1 9. I know exactly why that guy's a 9. He's a good boy. That's exactly good. Okay, 8s. A couple of 8s there. 7s, 6s, 5s. Certainly, that's the biggest lot right there. 5s so far. 4s. There's another good big lot right there. 3s, 2s, 1s. 0. You're praying for the second coming. Okay, let's just see how we should take that same vote when we're through and just see how well this works. It's clearly been one of my favorite classes to teach all these years because it really is kind of fascinating how many people go, you know, I haven't been exposed to some of the things you talked about. So it's nice that you're here. I'm glad that you're here. Let's just see if we move the needle for you at all as it relates to where we are today. And are we headed down the right path? So I want you to know I taught this back in 2008. It was the very first time I taught it to the students here at BYU, and it was so popular. I had so many people come. A lot of the faculty and staff also wanted to participate in the lecture. So let's see how well it fits you too. We're going to talk about this future by first starting to talk about some of the things that are taking place that certainly have been taking place in the past. But I don't want to spend too much time on this because we've got so much stuff to do. For those of you not in our last class, my wife very dutifully asked me, did you cut down the number of slides that you're presenting? Last year, I gave 23 compelling trends that are happening in America today. I've now got 25 on it. So now you just know that I've got to race through some of it in order to get it done. So let me just tell you this. So we want to make sure that the future is impacted by the knowledge that we've had in the past. Let me just give you a couple of things that are very fascinating. When was the last time the federal government was completely out of debt? They had absolutely no debt. It was in 1835. Ever since then, we've been in debt. The very first income tax that was ever in America was in 1861. That's just very fascinating to me. Here's the 1900s, the Ponzi schemes. You guys know about Ponzi schemes and what happened with Ponzi schemes, inflation. You know that it was about in 1971 that we gave up the gold standard. How many of you wish we'd go back to the gold standard? The gold standard seems like a good idea for you. We gave that up in 1961. Let me ask you today, when somebody hands you $1, what gives you confidence? Why do you take it? Is anybody here take $1? If I offered $100 today, anybody that would walk up and get it, how many people would come up? Sure. What gives you confidence? What gives you confidence in the value of that dollar? We're going to talk about that. The full faith of the government or something like that. But here we are on the 21st of August, 2023. We're going to try to see if we can make some sense. Now let's talk about the 2000s. Though. What's supposed to happen this year? There's a lot of people this century. A lot of people feel like Armageddon's supposed to happen. Who's on that train? Surely this will be done this century. There's no way the Savior's going to wait longer than the 20th century. I have to tell you something fun that I did. I speak to all these youth groups all the time. And before I do, I will pass out a 3x5 card. And I'll say, if the Savior came tomorrow and would answer 3 questions, any 3 questions, what would you ask him? I want you to know the answer that's come up the most. What do you think it would be? The answer that they always ask first is, when's the second coming? That's the one that they give the... And I always say this, if you've read the scriptures, the Savior might look back at you and say, I don't know. So don't waste a time on a question that he doesn't know the answer to. Why not get to something that, guess what the next one is? It's, when am I going to die? Can you imagine? They're kind of equally related to each other. It's kind of like, how much time do I have left? But let me answer that question for you the day that you're going to die. There's a website called deathclock.com. You can go to deathclock.com, and at deathclock.com, you'll answer 5 questions. And in answer to those 5 questions, they'll tell you the exact day you're going to die. My date is July 22nd, 2052. And if you don't think that day's important, my kids all have it circled on their calendar. Like, what a great thing. So, but now, it's really fascinating. One of the questions you have to answer is, what's your outlook? What's your forward-thinking outlook? And they give you 3 different potential answers. You can put down 4. You can put down optimistic, you can put down about neutral, you can put down pessimistic, or you can put down sadistic. I want you to know that to my answer, they did not have the answer delusionally optimistic, so I had to put down optimistic. So I put down optimistic. That's what it gave me, was 2052. I want you to know that I thought, well, geez, I wonder what it would do if I cut some, just kind of, instead of saying I'm optimistic, what if I was just normal? I typed in normal. Guess how many years it cut off my life? 25 years. Does that affect any of your opinion about what's happening in America today? Optimism, it's an elixir. It kind of helps you make a few more years out of life, just kind of for fun. Write that down. If I learn nothing else at education this week, can you write down one word, optimism, and see if somehow something that's said today might encourage you to be more optimistic? I promise you, by the time we get into this, I'll share with you some optimistic tools. So there you go. The one that's most on this website, there's an actual website you can go to. And in 2034, that's the next one coming up. The last one was supposed to happen in 2016. Lloyd Cunningham of Salt Lake City said that when the Donner Party died in the Sierra Nevadas, they buried a time capsule. And in that one, it came from a guy here in Salt Lake City. But 2024 is the next one coming up. The next things that could happen, Medicare could run out by 2028. I just looked it up yesterday. Said that Medicare will be gone by 2028. The Social Security Trust Fund will be gone by 2023. But here's one that I love to point out to you. It says that if you can live till the year 2045, you'll be immortal. Come on, I'm kind of working on that optimism a little bit. I'm just kind of working on it a little bit. It says if you get 2045 with the medical advances that are being developed today, you'll be immortal, that you will not die. And I want you to know I've got a lot of evidence to suggest that could be the case. Let's do America's financial future. The first thing I'm going to do is this. In all of my classes before, I've done the 14 challenging trends. I can't do them all today. I can't. There's no time to do them all. So this is one of the ways where I've kind of consolidated some of the material so that we don't have to go through it, so that we don't need to go through every single one of them. But I will tell you with the challenging trends, I have kept track of which ones that I've said in the past, and I'm going to show them to you. My first one is this, because people have asked me about this since last year. It's been one of the biggest questions. Number one, recessions. Are we in a recession right now? Technically, we're not. There's 7, 8 people on the economic board of directors of the country that have to say whether we're in a recession or not. And they've not declared that we're in a recession. But if we do go into a recession, how long do we stay in a recession? There's the duration of every single recession since the year 1945. That's the duration of every single recession. Do you see there on 22, 23? On the one that people think, well, we're certainly in one today. We're not in it yet, so we don't know how long it's going to take. The average length of a recession in America today has just been 10 months. That's going to be interesting. We're not there yet. Why are we not there? Because that group of 8 economists have said that we're not yet there. And I can give you more detail and reason why we're not. But for right now, we're not in a recession, at least according to those individuals. Here's the ones that I wanted to show you. These are the 14 challenging trends that we've introduced in the past. I would love, and all I got to do is look at them. Energy dependence, budget deficits, aging parents. Do you see what I'm saying? Those things that we really should be concerned with. I don't want you to think this is just a Pollyanna session of kind of waving pom-poms and doing backhands and hoping that everything turns out okay. We really do watch, and we very carefully consider the things we should be concerned about. And I've shown you between the difference between, as we've talked about them in education weeks in the past and where we are today. Real estate values, we've got about the exact same problem. They've actually got a little worse, I should say that. Healthcare costs have gotten much worse. Public education worse. Energy dependence. There's been a reversal on that one. So you can see where a lot of them are either getting worse, about the same. Don't think that but I'm going to show you the 2 things that I think are well worth your consideration as concerns for today. How many of you have heard the words modern monetary theory? How many of you have ever looked up what it means? How many of you are concerned about what you've read when you've seen modern monetary theory? What does the concept of modern monetary theory say? It says this: The size of the federal debt and the amount of dollars being printed or created does not matter. You can print, create, and you can borrow as much money as you want to. It will not matter at all as long as the United States is still creating productive value. Pretty interesting kind of, so that $31 trillion in debt that we have right now doesn't mean anything. It's not, because we're still got a positive gross domestic product. So they're saying it's just fine. It further says this, if my clicker will work, oh, there's my Nixon. Printing new money can be unlimited as long as it provides income and reduces unemployment. It says this, the United States government right now should provide for every single one of its citizens basic income insurance. Have you seen that in Sweden and some other countries? Where they get, if you're a citizen of the country, you get $1,000 or $2,000 a month. You just get that. It's kind of like Social Security for everybody. We should give everybody a basic income. We should give everybody a universal health insurance. We should give everybody a universal education, preschool through all post-secondary education should all be free. We should have universal housing. Everyone should get a house. Everyone should have access to complete energy, and everyone should have access to complete technology. What do you think? There are people that really believe this. I mean, I want you to know this. It's out there. It's really working right now. If inflation occurs, just increase taxation. And there's a lot of people in our government today that really openly support this, openly promote it and say, this is the way, this is what we should be doing in our country today. Now, I'll just tell you this. Could it be possible that their theory is correct? Well, it could be. Well, no, wait a minute. Now, come on. Be a group of highly academic enthusiasts that say, I'm willing to consider anything in an objective, out of the box. Yeah, I guess it's possible. My biggest concern with it is if it doesn't work, it'll be too late for us to do anything about it. That's the biggest concern that I have. And I will tell you this, there's a lot of people. Did you hear when President Obama was a president, he just said we just should print $1 trillion coin. As long as we can show that we have something of value that backs the whole thing up, then everything should be fine. So I know right now you're going nuts. But I'll tell you this is a gal right here, Stephanie Kelton. She wrote the book, The Deficit Myth, and she's one of the greatest supporters of it. This is a guy right now, Neil Kashkari. He actually ran for the governorship of California. In the middle of the last recession, he said, we'll print and create whatever money we need, whatever it takes to make it so that people don't. You remember the old thing about too big to fail? In our last recession, maybe they made it so that everybody is too big to fail. And they just made it so during the pandemic, everybody's too big to fail. And the one thing that I'm most concerned, another thing that I'm very, very concerned about. It used to be that we gave companies loans and asked them to repay them. But now, how many of you knew what a PPP loan was? What was unique about a PPP loan? Man, they gave out trillions of dollars of PPP loans. Trillions of dollars of money went out. And what was the condition? You never have to pay it back as long as you use it for keeping your business afloat. If you knew how many people got millions of dollars that did not need it in any way, it was a handout. It ended up being a handout. It's a very kind of a unique. But I will tell most of you, so you don't panic too much, most leading economists completely disagree with modern monetary theory. But I'll tell you this, our government today is behaving a lot like they all believe in it. Because suddenly the deficit doesn't mean anything. So, and that's unique to both parties. I'm sorry. I'm going to just be kind of like, it's kind of fun to watch all of them scramble to see if they can take credit for being fiscal conservatives or something like that. Kind of unique to both of the parties. So we're going to see if we can put America back together. It's one of my favorite things. Now, listen, if you don't have another experience at Education Week, I want you to watch this and watch this very carefully. It's one of my favorite people, Hans Rosling. He's written a book about this too. And I mean, unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago, but it was at Education Week, probably about 4 years ago. I was scrambling, putting together some more information for my presentation. I was up late one night, the night before I presented it, and this thing popped up on the internet. It's become one of my favorite videos. I want you to carefully consider this when you think of how bad things are, how terrible things are, and how the world's falling apart. Let's see how much you believe this. I like that. I'd like to just suggest that move anyone's needle. Don't raise your hand. Just kind of like, are you familiar with that? Do you know how much better the world is than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago? Do you see what's happening? Did you notice that ended in 2009? I'd love to have an update of that to today and show you where it is developed. So just kind of, that's the past. So that's the past. Let's see if we can move where we are today. I'm going to give you 25 compelling trends. Some of them I'm going to really go fast. I'm only going to say it and move on because I know I can't get through the whole thing. But there's some that I'd like you to just consider and say, I didn't see that. I didn't notice that, or I didn't see that that's a possibility of what's taking place in our country today. My first thing is this is purging prosperity is a very efficient thing to do. I love that quote by Goethe that says that everything in the world may be endured except continued prosperity. And we learn from the scriptures exactly what that is. We see that at the time that he prospers his people, that they forget who it was that made it possible, so that he has to send famines and plagues and pestilences and curses to remind him who was the one that was in charge of all of that. So that's my first one. I've already, for those that were in the previous class, talked about the newest greatest generation. I just have to tell you, and for those who weren't in the last class, how many were not here in the last class? And I need to say it again because you're just the generation that we're raising today. I know that a lot of you have been tempted to say those little dirt bags, they had their heads on their electronic devices. They seem to be disobedient. They're not behaving. They're having problems understanding their testimony, and they're doing all the things that probably shouldn't have. They shouldn't be doing. Hard research that we've done that shows how much better they really are, even better than the previous generation. I'd love to show it to you. I don't think I have it here, but I'd love to show the 104 different things that. So generation that we're raising today really is. There's 104 outperformance millennials for we give them 8 paradigms for unlimited personal potential, how they can actually recognize their fullest potential. We're in the process of writing a book right now called The Newest Greatest Generation. But then we also, with the science of generational prosperity, tell you how you can participate with them. I'm just going to argue or suggest or recommend, you choose the word that you'd like. I think the more that we find ways of actually becoming shoulders and being more focused on becoming the shoulders that they can use to continue to progress and grow. And we do that by then allowing those shoulders to be exposed. So we actually work with them on an ongoing basis. I'll just tell you this, even Tom Brokaw, that wrote the book, The Greatest Generation, has said that this millennial generation was even better than the others. Even he's said that after all that he wrote about the others. So it's not like it's a put down to what his book was. I just like to show you how remarkable they are and how young people today, of course, we as members of the church have no problem with this, do we? We've learned through every prophet in the latter-day dispensation. I should have written down the quote from every single one of them, where they've said, the Lord has reserved the finest, the most noble, and the brightest for the last days. We just got back from serving as a mission president, and I'll just tell you this, we had that theme when it came to all of our missionaries. We said, you might think that you're the brightest and boldest and most noble, but it's the next group of missionaries in that are actually smarter than you are. So we want you to make it so that they can grow the most by becoming shoulders to them too. And I'll just tell you this, I'd love to show you, I wish we had a whole class on doing nothing but telling you that this generation is just remarkable. I'm going to show you something right now that really, truly makes them that way. That's the book that we're writing about it. How many of you have heard of a unicorn? What's a unicorn besides an animal, a mythic animal? Go ahead. What's a unicorn? Okay, so a company that started from zero. I should make it so that you can actually say it very loud to everybody, but I know Leon very well. Leon, here's what he said. It's a company that starts from zero, of course, as all companies do, and they have a cap. They have a corporate capitalization. Their valuation grows to $1 billion or more, and a lot of times they like to limit that to the ones that can do it within 3 years of the date that they started. Okay, so it's huge. It's huge growth in companies that have taken place in America. The person that first coined it was Eileen Lee. She coined that term back in 2013, just 10 years ago. So I want you to kind of get the essence of what's been happening. In 2013, when she coined that term, there was only 39 companies that qualified in the world for that kind of a designation. During that period of time, the Harvard Business Review says that they're growing twice as fast now. From 2000 to 2015, they grew twice as fast as they did between the other two. In 2021, there are 340 startups that actually became unicorns. And today, in July, I just looked it up on the internet last night, July of 2023, there's over 1,200 known unicorns in America, in the world today. But here's the statistic I want to give you that's even more surprising. 76% of them have a millennial generation founder. Man, that's these young people. These young people are just doing stuff that, and I just have to tell you what's taking place and what's happening with some of the other, there's a lot of companies that, of course, some of the older companies that have to deal with some of the frustrations they had to deal with have not been as successful. But overall, the overall economy is growing. And this sector of the economy is growing so fast, we can barely imagine how fast it's growing. And it's being led in many cases by these millennials. I will tell you this, Elder Eyring was the one that called my wife and I to serve the mission. And I remember when we sat down and talked with him, he said this. He said, I'm going to tell you three things. He said, no one in this world knows how fast the church is moving, how fast the Lord's work is moving right now. He said, but he wants to move faster. His problem is he has to deal with very inadequate people like you and me. I did not take it offensively at all that he included me in that inadequate category as he was tapping his own chest, as he said, inadequate people like you and me. I just have to tell you, there are things that are taking place. I'd love to take you on a journey. It'd be fun to have a whole class over nothing but what's happening with those unicorns, how fast they're growing, what's taking place with them. How many of you have taken a drive down I-15 lately and seen Lehigh? Have you kind of noticed how fast it's growing and how many of those companies have those big signs out that have something to do with technology? And it's just the most amazing thing that you'll ever imagine. Here's my third thing. So the first thing was purging inefficient prosperity. The second thing is this newest, greatest generation that we're developing. The third thing is the unicorns and the billion-dollar valuations that are taking place regularly. How many people know what open source collaboration is? You ever heard the word open source collaboration? Raise your hand if you've heard that word. It's pretty interesting. Not that many of you have heard a lot about it. I'll give you a good book to read when it comes to what that means, to reading about it. This book, Wikinomics, has been by most people been rated as one of the best business books that's been written in the last 20 years. So just kind of put that down on your reading list, would you? So after Education Week, you pick that book up. It's probably 10, 12, 13 years old now. But I mean, the things in it are just, it's stunning what's taken place in environments. Here's what I have to emphasize this. These open source collaborations are where individuals have contributed a large amount of time, talents, expertise. I like to throw spiritual gifts on it when I'm teaching here at BYU. They've contributed a large amount of time, talents, expertise, and spiritual gifts and financial resources in an environment where they receive no financial compensation, recognition, or awards. How many of you have ever typed into Wikipedia? That's open source. No one receives any compensation. We don't even know who the owner. I think that we do know one of the people that started originally or something like that. That's open source collaboration where people receive. They have hundreds of thousands of individuals that review articles and do all sorts of work for it. They receive no compensation. They receive no award for it. Why are they doing that? And you think, well, that must be just some isolated kind of thing like Wikipedia. How many of you ever typed anything into Family Search for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Guess what Family Search is? That's open source collaboration. No one receives any compensation, time, recognitions, or awards for what they're doing. They just, for some reason, like to give so much of that. I just have to tell you just how extensive it is. How many of you ever seen a TED Talk? How many of you like TED Talks? If you didn't raise your hand when I said like TED Talks, there's my second thing I'm going to recommend after you read the book Wikipedia. Learn to love TED Talks and what's happening there. That's, once again, no one gets any compensation for it. They just do that just because somebody decided that they wanted to do it. They're not getting any compensation or recognition for it. Just look at some of these things. The Kickstarter program and how you can get on the internet and suddenly raise 50, 60, 70,000. There's people who have raised as much as $1 million from just individuals that they said, look, we're not going to promise you anything. I've just got a good idea and I'd like to have you help me raise some money to do my good idea. And away they go. And they've raised as much as $1 million by just doing Kickstarter programs. Upward. I mean, I hope this yet too right there. The mic. I don't know that this thing's working, but can you see yet to the third one up? A lot of the largest corporations in America today have opened up their filing cabinets where they've got hundreds of thousands of patents. They've put all those patents online. You can go see the patent. You can go read the patent. You can read all about it. And the corporations have just said, if anybody would like to partner with us in doing some of those patents, it's all available to you. I can't stop talking about what kinds of things are taking place right now in environments like that, where people are donating all this time. So when someone says something like your time, talents, and everything or something like that you've heard of, I think a lot of that's already taken place. Isn't that kind of cool? And it's taking place in environments. You should see how much of the economy today that has been estimated is being dominated by these open source activities where no one's receiving any compensation for it. They're doing it just because they love to do it. You tell me what makes people want to do that. That's a very fascinating part of what's taking place today. certainly open source and mass collaborations. This is a major research project. It was done by Deloitte, the accounting company, that talked about what it was. And they said, this is exponentially advancing technology today, utilizing the power of disruptive innovation. Who's heard those words, disruptive innovation? Clayton Christensen, that made them so popular. Utilizing the power of disruptive innovation. They say that there'll be 5.3, well, they just know this. There are 5.3 billion people on the earth today. Of the 9 that are on the earth, 5.3 of them have access to the internet in some form. And every single one of those become part of this economy of people that will give all this time and talent. So they say it's 5.3 billion individual workers. And it just says, this is one of the fun quotes, as more people from all walks of life shift online, therefore the crowd can begin to operate as a scale that exceeds even that of the biggest and most complex global corporations, bringing in many more individuals to focus on any given challenge. I wish we could just do nothing but one class on some of the things. The X Prize. Do you all know what the X Prize is? They offer $10,000 to the guy that comes up with an answer to some gigantic problem, that you'd normally pay somebody millions of dollars to solve it. And they have all these contests where people decide, and they give them $10,000, for one who comes up. It's a remarkable thing. Now, here's some that I'm going to race through. So you can see where I put on there, the open source and mass collaborations that's taking place in the economy today. Real estate values. How many of you were surprised how much they went up? How many of you are now equally surprised at how well they're holding their value? Pretty much. I mean, obviously, in some areas it's come down a bit, but it's pretty stunning. Even as interest rates have gone back up, what's underlying that whole thing that made them go up so in such a bizarre way? But they're still holding quite well right now. Corporate profits are still strong, and the cash. So profits and cash are still strong. They're not at record levels. Last year, I reported that they were at record levels, but they're still strong. Their cash positions are strong. How many people want to invest in corporations that are strong cash positions that are very profitable? That's what the essence is of making great investments. And their cash positions and their profitability is still very strong. Anybody, and I see I'm rifling through some because there's some that I'm getting to that I'm going to take a little more time with. So diversification and allocation of your investments. How many of you learned about that? I just have to tell you in such a strong way how critical it is that you make sure that your investments are well allocated and well diversified through every single one of the recessions that you've seen during your lifetime. It's been proven conclusively, if you're well diversified and you're well allocated, at least historically, I'm going to tell you, it still worked very, very strongly. How many of you didn't like 2008? How many of you didn't like the pandemic? How many of you didn't like any time your stock went down in value? How many of you, I just have to kind of bring this up, and I know that I'm treading on thin ice when I say this. So I know that for some of you, you'd like to throw something at me when I say this, but I do this at that risk. In the last class, I talked about the Lord of the vineyard that left a lot of money with 3 of his workers. And when he came back, he said, what'd you do with it? And the first one said, I multiplied it 10 times. And he said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. What? Have thou authority over 10 cities. He wanted to put him in a position of trust and confidence and where he could lead other people and help them to do the same thing. He said to the second, what'd you do? He said, I made it worth 5 times more. He said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Have thou authority over 5 cities. Now, come on, here's the part that's controversial. I'm going to step on some toes right now. To the third, he said, what'd you do with it? He said, I feared. So I buried it. How many of you have been really fearful about investments recently and done the equivalent of burying it? I had one guy last year after education week said he had $800,000 in cash sitting in his vault. That's one way to do it. That's one way to do it, but I would just kind of suggest. So I'm only suggesting the possibility. I'm going to give you some prophetic quotes in a minute. So we're not going to just talk about what might make sense financially, but I give you prophetic quotes about where we are right now. Maybe all that fear. Now, some kind of reason, assumptions of what might take place based on, I'm just saying, just when you're well allocated and you're well diversified, for the most part, I'm going to tell you there's no need of a lot of fear. So here we go. So how about inflation and interest rates? With all the money that's been poured into this economy, this thing should be so completely out of control. And for the most part, I'm not how many of you know that we just went through an inflationary period that we have some reason to believe we're not quite through yet, right? So they're still out there. But if all the money that was printed, created, and borrowed has been placed into that economy during the pandemic, why isn't this economy more out of control? Why aren't we knowing more high interest rates, more high inflation rates, that kind of thing? For some reason, I'm just going to tell you long term that doesn't seem to be showing that kinds of things. Now, this is one that I really have to be careful with. Advances in technology. With my classes at BYU, I spent 2 days on nothing but these advances in technology. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes on them with you. So please bear with me and kind of have bright and vivid imaginations as I say, do you know what's going on in medicine today? We just made an investment in technology that came out of the University of Utah that if it doesn't stop depression, and it's all to do with, I won't go into the whole thing. I'll just tell you, there's lots of other things that are taking place in medicine that I actually did a list, and I'm going to really give you a controversial one at the end of this list. All the things that are taking place. So with the students at BYU, what I did was this. We had the 10 innovations that'll change your life the most in the next 10 years. Then we divided them into 10 education innovations, the 10 medical innovations, the 10 energy innovations. You see the 10 transportation, you see what I'm saying? So this is the 10 medical innovations. I added one to the bottom of the list last time, mRNA vaccinations. Ooh, you don't like that. No, wait a minute. Somebody said, I'm not going to take it. Okay. Did I say that you have to? I didn't say that. I just want you to consider something. This is not a class on should you take the vaccination or should you not take the vaccination. I just want you to do a little research on mRNA vaccination technology. So not should you take this vaccination or not, you should have to. I'm just asking you to do this. Take a look at the mRNA vaccination technology. It's in a third stage trial test now to eliminate 8 different forms of cancer, to eliminate a number of the different neurological diseases that people are suffering with right now. So just kind of, instead of making this as it related to coronavirus or something like that, which I know that can be kind of hard, I introduced this last year at Education Week, and I must have had a dozen people walk up afterwards. So, I didn't think about it that way. I've added that to the list of the things that in 10 to 15 years, you'll find out it's one of the most dramatic medical technology breakthroughs that we've ever had is the technology. Not whether you should take corona, you know what I'm saying? So it's a big difference between saying you should take that vaccination and just learning more about about the vaccination technology. Whoa, it's unbelievable. Here's an app that you could get onto TED Talks. And remember that name right there, Daniel Kraft. Just for fun, you go look at what's taking place on medical apps right now. You'll see what I mean. You can learn a lot through different, here's energy sources, energy efficiencies that are taking place in the country and what's taking place with those. Transportation efficiency, education is one of my very favorites for obvious reasons. There's a number of things. You remember Clayton Christensen? How many knew Clayton Christensen? Or have I ever heard the name Clayton Christensen, right? I tell my students in my class, and I told all my missionaries this, I believe in fame by association. I'm famous because I know Clayton Christensen. I grew up with him in Rose Park. You know how he loves Rose Park. We grew up, played on the same basketball team, floated the Jordan River together, that kind of stuff. I got to tell you something fun. I just have to tell you this. I shouldn't tell you this because it has nothing whatsoever to do with this class. How's that? But I just have to show that I'm famous because I know Clayton Christensen. Got it? I took 2 of my sons, Christopher and my son Clayton. I took them back, and when we were going back to Boston to do something else, I called Clay and I just said, look, I'd like to just introduce my sons to you because they're hearing his name all the time. So when we got back there, he sat us down for an hour. For an hour. And this is what Clayton told my sons. Now, so remember, this is Clayton Christensen. The Clayton Christensen talking to my sons. He said, I want to tell you a story about what happened when I was young. He said, my mother sat our family one day down for a family home evening. She said, you guys have got to get your head out of books. You're reading too much. How many parents have that problem? You guys are reading too much. You got to get your heads out of books. One day you're going to be a missionary and you got to learn how to talk. You got to learn how to positively persuade. You got to learn how to get outside of yourself and say something to other people. And he looked at my sons and said, then my mother said, now take Scott Marsh, for example. This is when I was probably 16 years old. She said, take Scott Marsh, for example. That guy could make a lot of money and be very successful selling used bubble gum. Because we laughed, and I said to Clayton, I said, I don't know if that was a compliment. And he said, no. And he's telling my son, my mother was trying to tell me to be more like you. Me, be more like, I tell all my students and my missionaries. He went on to be the most brilliant man in the world. And I went on to sell a lot of used bubble gum. So nevertheless, I just have to tell you, the things that are taking place in education today. even in this church, do you guys get it? This is a place where you don't really understand what's taking place with pathways, what's taking place with BYU Idaho, BYU Provo, with all the other education initiatives they have right now. If there's no other reason that you're proud of your membership in this extraordinary organization called the LDS Church, or the Church of Jesus Christ, all these things, I just have to tell you what they're doing to educate this next generation. And the enthusiasm they have for this next generation is just remarkable. Some other things that we just added to it when it came to what's happening. There's BYU that's been recognized as the most efficient education system in America today as it relates to what they provide and what they charge. No one even comes close to what this church is doing. And I hope that if at some point in time, with all the other things you can be proud of for what's happening, you can be proud of this building that we're in and the work that they do here. It's beyond our imagination. So there's all our extraordinary advances. I mean, all the things that we worked through, all the things that we talked about that has to do with advances. My next one, I'm going to go through them very fast. When somebody's a high income earner and the economy tanks, there's a psychological profile that is buried deep in their DNA that makes it so that they get back to that same place. And boy, have they done that very efficiently. I want you to know that you're going to live a lot longer and be a lot healthier than you currently believe you are. How many people have said something like this in the last 10 years? Oh, my dad died at 84, so I'm sure that's about when I'm going to be gone too. Or. Let me just tell you what the prophet Joseph Smith and Brigham Young knew about our days. Now, see, you're saying this is this knucklehead that's teaching this stuff in class. Number one, I just want to show you that there's pills that might be available today. Did you know that they're rats? They've actually reversed the aging process in rats. Now, that might not mean a lot to you, but I want to be one of those rats. I tell all my missionaries and my students I'm going to be the fourth Nephite. I want to live for a long, long time. The Time magazine article, it said if you can live to 2045, you're going to be immortal. Just for a second, I want you to consider a couple of quotes by the prophet Brigham Young. Here's what he said. It is recorded, you're aware that in former days, mankind lived to a great age, to over 900 years old. It is written that Methuselah lived to the greatest age, 969, and perhaps many others lived to a like age. And would you know, now listen to this sentence. How many of you would like to do this? You'd like to live long upon this earth with the power to overcome diseases, to overcome your enemies, to enjoy life, to plant gardens, to build cities, and to adorn them and make them beautiful, set out shade trees, orchards, and vineyards, and make walks, parks, and ornamental grounds, and have schools, academies, and universities living 600, 700, or 800 years or more to enjoy those blessings. Now, just keep coming with me. Would you like that if you could live for a long time? He said this, a few thousand years ago, mankind outlived many of the present generations. Could you live to see 20, 30 or more generations come and go, see kings rise and fall, for many hundreds of years observe the rise and fall of governments, enjoy the pleasure, blah, 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 would you? So he says, you would like that, you would, for even now, if you cling to the earth in so much that you thought that you were going to die before tomorrow morning, it would be send for the elders, run for a doctor, and get some medicine. How many of you here are 95 that just ordered a new operator? I'm just kidding, you don't want. But here's the fun thing. It is written that in the latter days, the age of man shall be as the age of a tree, when the Lord shall bring again Zion. The prophet understood that it would have been again, and this came out of the Journal of Discourse. So what he's saying is in the last days, we're going to live hundreds of years. How many people like that idea? Now, remember, the power to overcome illnesses, sicknesses, and diseases, and have all those blessings and benefits. Now raise your hand. If you had the power to do all those things, why would you want to go anyplace else? This is kind of a cool place. Just think the next life is a place that you're going to spend the rest of eternity. It's okay to spend 10 more years here. So, babies. I always tell my students to live and imagine and create as if you'll be here forever. It really does have. Seek and expect miracles. You've seen that from President. So we're going to receive much larger inheritance. You got to remember, I got a race, and so I can get it. So much larger inheritances are on the way. The reverse mortgage, for those of you who don't like it right now, just know I'm going to tell you this: by the year 2030, it'll be the new pension, because so many people will need it. So many people are not saving what they should save, and so the pension will become something that will be much more important. Here's a fun thing: Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'm going to race through this, but I want to make sure you see it. Throughout all time, how has the United States economy assimilated the workforce? So when we went from agrarian to industrial to manufacturing, in all those stages, everybody said there'll be no work. Now remember, there'll be no work. How about the computer age? When we started doing computer, how about the Great Recession? How about artificial intelligence? Everybody's saying there's no way in the world artificial intelligence is going to take away all these jobs. The World Economic Forum said that artificial intelligence will create 58 million new jobs. And here's my question to you. With all those things that have been taking place, all the artificial intelligence we've been experiencing, all the undocumented immigration, now that's a little controversial, isn't it? All the undocumented immigration, I'm going to throw that on the table. All the artificial intelligence we've had, all the undocumented immigration that we've had, and all the massive layoffs that you've heard about recently, we're right now at the lowest unemployment in 50 years. How did that happen? Unless there's something taking place in the United States of America that's pretty cool. It's pretty well worth our looking and saying, man, there's something going on that I kind of like. This is beside what I've been taught to be concerned about. Our demographics, I'll just tell you this great book right here. There's another one for you to read right there, America by the Year 2050 by Joel Kotkin. I'll just read you his quotes. He just said this, among advanced countries, where did it go? Among advanced countries, America will emerge by mid-century as the most affluent, culturally rich, and successful nation in the human history. We're the only economy, we're the only society today where our population is still growing. Every other major industrialized economy in the world, the population is shrinking. You don't know what that'll mean for us as time goes on. I just see some people periodically going like this, and I'm so grateful for you to periodically go like that. You know, there's something about going, yeah, that is pretty interesting. We're the only major industrialized country in the world that has a growing population. Do you all know why growing populations are so critical? Yeah. And we're the only one. And here's a guy saying, by 2050, it'll just be, so we still have a great creativity, whatever. We have a higher education workforce, the potential change in taxes. I'm not going to get into this too much. We've done all this research. You got to lock in. If you want to hear my presentation on Roths and why you should not do Roths and what will happen with sales tax, you need to hear that. But I can't go into too much of it right now. Just know that the American economy has to grow. You see, I'm at 19. I'm supposed to get to 25, and I think I've got 2 minutes, don't I? Are we supposed to be done in 2 minutes? I was at 45, so I got 6 minutes. Okay, so I'll slow down just a little bit, maybe. We're still the world's leader in all these different areas. We have the best college. The dollar is the kingdom most competitive of all economies. I just have to kind of give you this opportunity to say, whew, all those financial market regulations that took place in 2008, we have every sign to suggest to you now that they work very well. Here was a gal back in 2008 that was supposed to be the ultimate authority on municipal governments. In 2010, she said in 60 Minutes, this will happen to billion. There'll be billions of dollars in defaults, in municipal defaults. Actually, what happened was the default rate on municipal bonds went down since then. If you've got a municipal, a mayor or a chairman of a council or something like that that's done well, make sure you pat them on the back because they've done such a great job. Our energy situation has gone, is more independent. I hope that we even make it more than that, but for right now, we talked about world-class prosperity. I want to just kind of show you one book, and I want to show you a quote that I want you to think about. Here's another one that I'd highly recommend you read if you get a chance, called Abundance. The Future is Better Than You Think, written by Peter Diamandis. And if you want a copy, I've got a number of copies still left in my office. I sent them to all my clients, and we had some left over, so I'd be happy to send you one of them. But he said this, I want you to think about it. He said, within a generation, we'll be able to provide goods and services once reserved for the wealthy few to any and all who need them. Imagine a world of 9 billion people with clean water, nutritious food, affordable housing, personalized education, top-tier medical care, and non-polluting ubiquitous energy. That's what Hans Rosling said at the beginning, right? We're moving towards the healthy, wealthy corner. This is another individual who's saying the exact same thing. This is another guy that said basically the exact same thing. I just want to get onto one quote that I think is very important. We as members of the church, now do you notice we're at number 25 now? So we're racing right up to where we need to be. Latter-day Strengths. What's happening in the Church of Jesus Christ today? That's not just what's happening here at BYU. I don't know. If any of you are wondering about your testimony, come up afterwards. I'll fix you. I mean, I can take care of any wandering testimony of anybody who's still an honest seeker of truth. I can take care of any wandering testimony in a number of different ways. But I'll just tell you this, anybody that can go down that list right there and find out just how remarkable this church is and what's happening. The fruits of what has taken place in this gospel of Jesus Christ is remarkable beyond our imagination. Let me give you a couple of quotes I want to share. This is Russell M. Ballard. Russell M. Ballard said this: face the future with optimism. I believe we're standing on the threshold. Now, come on. See if this moves a little bit of a needle. Just kind of, this is one. I believe we're standing on the threshold of a new era of growth, prosperity, and abundance. Barring a calamity or unexpected international crisis, I think the next few years will bring a resurgence in the economy as new discoveries are made in communication, medicine, energy, transportation, physics, computer technology, and other fields of endeavor. I want you to know of the 15 living apostles and prophets on the earth today, we've got quotes from 12 of them that have said something similar to that. I look forward with great optimism to what's taking place today. There's Elder Packer and what he said. Nevertheless, now remember, Elder Packer was that guy that said that we've now reached the point of come on, what's the Sodom and Gomorrah? Man, I was thinking Armageddon, could get that out of my head. And here's Elder Packer just before he passed away. He said, nevertheless, when I think about the future, I'm overwhelmed with the feelings of positive optimism. I will tell you this: the prophets are trying to make us more optimistic. They're trying to get us to the point where we understand that. So, compelling historical momentum. These are now listen, this is going to take a little time. So will you kind of be with me for a minute? You want to take a picture of a screen, that's the best one. But you wouldn't have to take a picture of that screen. You could just look into an anchor to the souls of men by President Howard W. Hunter. Back in 1993, he came to the students here at BYU. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm going to summarize a little bit, but I want to get to the best part of it so that you have it before you leave. I'm here tonight to tell you that despair, doom, and discouragement are not an acceptable view of life for Latter-day Saints. I'm going to go clear down here. In my lifetime, I've seen 2 world wars. No, that's not the one I want. No, I'm going to come clear down here. So I'm frank to say tonight that I hope you won't believe all the world's difficulties that have been wedged into your decade. I encourage all of you to read the talk. But I won't believe that all this world's difficulties have been wedged into your decade, or that things have never been worse than they are for you personally, or that they will never get any better. He said, I reassure you that the things that have been worse, they will always get better. They always do, especially when we live and love the gospel of Jesus Christ and give it a chance to flourish in our lives. At the end of that talk, he said this. He said, let me close tonight with one of the greatest statements I've ever read from the prophet Joseph Smith, who faced such immense difficulties in his life and who, of course, paid the ultimate price for his victory. But he was he was a happy, robust, optimistic man. Those who knew him felt his strength and his courage. Even in the deepest and darkest of times, he did not sag in spirits or long remain in despondency. He said about our time, now come on, this is us right now today. He said about our time, yours and mine, that ours is the moment upon which prophets, priests, and kings in ages past have dwelt with peculiar delight. All these ancient witnesses of God have looked forward with joyful anticipation to the day in which we live, and fired with heaven in joyful anticipations, they have sung and written and prophesied of this our day. We are the favored people that God has chosen. Bring about the latter-day glory. That is a thrilling statement to me. That the ancients, whom we love and read and quote so much, Adam and Abraham, Josiah and Joseph, Isaiah, Ezekiel and Ezra, Nephi and Alma, Mormon and Moroni, all of these ancient prophets, priests, and kings focused their prophetic visions with peculiar delight on our day, on our time. It is this hour to which they look forward with joyful anticipation and fired with heavenly and joyful anticipation. They've sung and written and prophesied of this our day. They saw us as the favored people whom God would shower his full and complete latter-day glory. I testify that this is our destiny. What a privilege, what an honor, what a responsibility, what a joy. We have every reason in time and eternity to rejoice and give thanks for the quality of our lives and the promises that we've been given. I just want to tell you one quick story. Can I do it? I'm going to go 1 minute over time. I'm so sorry. Please step aside. I teach my missionaries, and I taught a lot of my students about yellow pad prayer. I'm not going to get into the whole thing. It's about how you receive personal revelation on a daily basis. If there's anything that our theme at Education Week this week has become, is that final step that says that when it's personal revelation, it finally sinks deep, that we finally get that witness that we need. Nevertheless, I was coming to BYU one day, and I'm writing the book right now. I've got an editor here at BYU that's going to do all the editing for me. But here's one of the stories I tell in it. I was headed to BYU, and I felt the Spirit. When you know what the Spirit feels like, you know what the voice of the Lord sounds like. So you hear his voice when you know what. And I was just coming around the corner of the mountain. I was at the point of the mountain, and I just felt the Spirit. And I went, I didn't know why. So I pulled to the side of the road and pulled out my yellow pad. This has happened more than once in my life. I said, Heavenly Father, I thank you, but I don't know why You're telling me that there's something you want to tell me. So I started writing down my yellow pad prayer. And so I have to then, but part of the yellow pad prayer is to state what you believe the answer is. Give him the answers and let him confirm the answers instead of always asking for the answers. He wants you to develop the divine mindset. Nevertheless, so I my paper, I said, I am headed to BYU to teach a class. And so I'm assuming that something that you want to talk to me about has something to do with my class. I got a very strong spiritual impression. Okay, it has to do with your class today. So then I started to say, well, could it mean that you want me to completely change the lecture and teach about the gospel? I didn't feel any confirmation. Do you want me to teach? I just went through about 6 different things. So you have to recognize that I'm still very inadequate when it comes to knowing exactly what he wants. But then I finally wrote down one thing, and I said, there's one person in that class today whose life can be significantly changed by you saying the right things. Strong confirmation. So I said, okay, how do I figure out who that one person is? That's kind of hard. Throw a dart, 350 students, whatever. So then I started writing up potential answers for that. And when I finally wrote down the one that said, give your Heavenly Father a list of the topics you're going to talk about today, and let him confirm which topic it is that person their life would be most blessed by hearing. And of course, the Spirit overwhelmed me. That's exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to spend extra time talking about what it was that he knew would impact that person's life so much. Guess what I was talking about that day and what I was sharing in class? That. And so when I got to that point of the lecture, I didn't go through it as fast as I did with you. I took some more time with it, and I bore my testimony to it. At the end of it, I just told them, I said, man, I was driving down to BYU today, and the Lord stopped me on the freeway and just said, there's someone in this room today who could be significantly blessed by that message right there. And I just want to make sure that you've got it, and you got it clearly. There's a reason to be happy, prosperous, joyful, in anticipation with peculiar delight what the Lord's doing in our behalf. And I finished the lecture, and, as always is the case, 20 or 30 people gathered to ask questions or whatever. And when I got through with all 20, one of the students, there stood a little girl. I'll never forget it as long as I live. She looked up at me, she just sobbed. And she said, Brother Marsh, it was me. The Lord stopped you for. She said, I just went through a very painful breakup. And school is such an enormous pressure that I consider a waste of my life. She said, when I saw that, that's what I need to know. People both cried together. I'm so sorry. I can still picture her face like it was yesterday. We both cried together. I gave her a hug. In our society today, that might not be, but that day at BYU, it was perfect. And we sat down and we said a little prayer together. Now, I immediately got her in touch with the people here on campus who take care of that. You don't just say a prayer when somebody's pondered a way to end. She said that it was so overwhelming that I thought of ways to end my life today. And she said, when I saw that just made all the difference. And so I got her in touch with the people that can provide long-term counseling to make sure that that's not just, but I just hope that somehow you'll, in your own mind, consider carefully. It's so easy to be negative today. One of the most important things I tell people to do is turn off cable news. How many people will make that commitment right now? Turn off cable news. That's how they make their money. They make their money by fear and extreme and loud voices. Can you imagine that they make money off people that are still willing to sit and listen to that stuff? Turn it off. Turn it off and start considering this. It was a couple of years ago. Some guy stood up at the end of class and says, I just got to say this. He said, I work for the United States Department of Defense or something like that. Oh, whatever. No, he worked for the State Department. He said, my wife and I flew into Education Week this morning. He said, the first class we went to was on the second coming. They told us about the sin, the wickedness, and all the and then we come over here and you're telling us how good it is. And he went like this. He said, I vote for this message. And everybody in the room got that. I just promise you this. There's reasons, and I hope it moved the needle a little bit to say, God, we're part of what those ancient prophets rejoiced for. I always said this. Can you imagine Isaiah seeing a smartphone and going, what the heck is that thing? You can see why he was rejoicing. Can you imagine the tool, the power, the information that you got at your fingertips? I just think, considered all those things together, I just believe that you'll become one of those laborers that will multiply and not be fearful. Because ultimately, the ones that can multiply and find within this environment we're working within the opportunity to bless other people's lives, that's our ultimate goal. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.